Welcome, everyone. I'm here today with Savannah. Today, we're going to talk about how the true bottleneck to investment, being a good capital allocator, and scalable world impact is deep people science, healing from traumas, and upskilling people. If you had $1 billion tomorrow to deploy as a VC, as an LP, as any person, and you wanted to deploy that money to companies or products within your company, the failure point is deep people science. Because if you have $1 billion to deploy in your company or across companies right now, or $10 billion, or even $1 million, the actual bottleneck is deep people science, because there's not enough top talent in the world to have the best salespeople, the best engineers in the world, the best people healed from their traumas to where they can actually communicate properly in a team. This is a trauma OS, I call it, is one of the biggest hurdles to capital inefficiency or capital efficiency in the world that a lot of people do not realize. So you could have $1 billion today to try to deploy it across companies, across products, and you wouldn't be able to unless you actually had the deep people science skills to interview really, really well and to up-level really, really well. And up-leveling is actually more important, because a lot of times at bigger companies, people will look and say, hey, I want to de-risk the sales. Let me go hire the person that was VP of sales or VP of growth at Dropbox or at Airbnb or Google or whatever, right? And so you look at these companies that are growing across 5, 7, 10-year horizons, and they go through great VPs, directors, ICs even, and you then want to hire the people from those exited companies in, right? And you have like this, it's like kind of recycling of top talent. Even within those people, we could still evolve those humans to be better humans, better communicators, less traumas, etc. Right? But then outside of that, small, less than 1% of the population, you still look at the rest of the population and say, to upskill people into sales skill, engineering skill, product skill, accounting skill, HR skill, etc., and to uplevel people as better humans, more well-rounded, can communicate with a wide variety of people. This is the actual true bottleneck. And so you actually have to look and say, if you want to deploy capital scalably, if you want to grow products scalably, looking at growing humans, how are you going to grow humans better and faster than anyone else? That is the true bottleneck to the entirety of global impact at scale right now.
Absolutely. Humans are the company. That's something that people fail to see. And one thing that you said that I want to touch on too is that the brand transference that happens when somebody gets an amazing role at either Apple, Google, like one of the top names, and then they might be traumatized, like they might not do as amazing of a job as like someone else who's like highly teachable, high brain speed, who can just learn really quickly and absorb really quickly. That person can scale potentially a lot quicker than the person who's gotten the brand transference from like working at a top place and then jump to the next top place, the next top place, the next top place. So you have to be on the lookout for those types of things, because you're right, hiring is something that is incredibly important, because when you're managing especially large sums of money within the company, you need people to take care of those assets and deploy them in the correct departments and in the correct ways, because you don't want backlogs in your marketing department, your engineering department, and you need great leaders that can run those departments and great employees to be within those departments as well. In general, when you're hiring, you need to be looking for things like brain speed. That's one thing that I mainly look for, is in the first 1 to 2 meetings, like how quickly can they process information and absorb information depending on the type of role that I'm hiring them for. Like let's say that we're hiring on an analyst and an executive assistant. Both of those roles need to be able to take information that we've given them, analyze it quickly, be able to give out answers quickly, and just generally be working at a pretty quick pace as well. When looking at the skills needed for each member of your team, be looking at the people science first and then the brand afterwards. Because having the brand to back them up and for them to also have like those connections within network, like that's incredible. But also, if you want your team to run really efficiently, if you people who can think quickly, absorb quickly, and act quickly, that will help move your company forward exponentially faster than the person who might have been at, a huge name company for a many amount of years.
Yeah. A lot of people are looking for money or strategy. I need a certain amount of money to be successful. I need this in terms of an investment, or I need it from customers, whatever. I need a certain amount of money to proceed forward, or I need a certain strategy, right? What I would say is, remember the phrase of just essentially screw money, screw strategy, focus on people. Because there's too many times where you can deploy money, you can deploy strategy, and if you deploy it to a team member where that particular person is triggering to all females or males in a sales call. Then the conversion rate is dropped no matter how good you had money to hire the sales team or how good of strategy you had on executing it. If that person is always triggering to a certain type of person, a certain country, a certain culture, a certain education, whatever, and they're going to be triggering to the other people, that's going to affect the conversion rate. Or inside of the company, that's going to affect how they work with other employees in the company. So understanding, like you're talking about brain speed, we call it TCB, trauma, curiosity, brain speed. When you lower trauma, you increase curiosity. And when you increase curiosity, you then start to compound concepts, which increases brain speed. That's why in a graph chart, we can say from 0 to 100, like a bar chart, T, C, and B, a bar chart of like how high is the trauma, the curiosity is going to be low, the brain speed is going to be low. As soon as you start to lower the trauma, you then start to increase the curiosity. And then after curiosity starts to increase, then you can also start to increase brain speed. And so we want to look for people with a low trauma, higher curiosity, and higher brain speed. And when we're talking about up-leveling people, because that's the actual bottleneck to world impact and to all investment at scale in the world, we actually have to look at everybody and say, okay, this is where the trauma is. Let's start to lower the trauma so that they open up curiosity, ask more questions, genuinely care to grow and learn and absorb information instead of being traumatized like, well, I don't want people to think that I don't know my stuff. So let me act like I know my stuff and let me not ask questions. And anytime somebody shares a lens or a perspective with me that I could learn from, let me deflect it and be like, oh, well, I already know that, right? That's trauma that's stopping you, or trauma with a certain person or a certain type of person or a certain personality where now you can't work with them or you can't communicate with them really well. And that's going to cause capital inefficiency in the company to where even if you had $1 billion, even if you had the greatest strategy, the people in the organization is going to cause that issue. So screw money, screw strategy, focus on people science.
Well said. Well said. With people with high trauma, they cannot be nearly as curious like you're talking about because they don't have the capacity to be able to get past like either their inefficiencies or their lack of intellect, like whatever they're trying to get past to be able to be curious enough to ask those questions. And those questions, I mean, they can take a task being an hour long to it could be a week just because they didn't have the mental capacity to ask that question to their advisor, their supervisor, or even their co-founder. So it's important to look for this not only within your team when you're hiring, but also look for it within co-founders and partners as well, because that's really important.
100%. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize the dramaticness of this. Like you just mentioned it, right? Like some people, they can learn something and absorb and integrate that information within hours, and other people will take weeks just based on the TCB matrix of trauma, curiosity, brain speed. The higher the trauma, lower the curiosity, and the lower the brain speed, the more when I'm consulting CEOs, when I'm building our team out, and I'm looking and I go, okay, high trauma, lack of asking questions, lack of absorbing information. I look and I go, okay, this person's a 16 weeker, and it's going to take me sharing one lens per week where they kind of absorb it, and then over 16 weeks we'll get them from point A to point B in terms of their growth and in terms of their performance on KPIs and everything else. And then there's other people where I can look and I go, in 2 weeks we'll have this person up to par because I can share 5, 6, 8 different lenses in a single call, in a single weekly call, or I can have 3 calls with them in that week, 3 15-minute calls if I wanted to. And in each one, I can share 5, 5, 5, right? And so now that 16-weeker became a 1 week, right? So people don't realize trauma leads to curiosity, leads to brain speed, and this is capital efficiency in the world, and this is the primary bottleneck to deploying $1 billion, to deploying $10 billion at scale. You can come up with all the ideas that you want, have the best strategy for deploying that product, that company, that, and if you do not have the number of people that are quality to do the sales, to do the engineering, the accounting, the HR, and human quality in terms of I'm a good human that can communicate to other humans, that's the true bottleneck to world impact at scale.